From July 21st to July 31st, human history has been forged by events spanning continents and centuries. These 10 days have witnessed scientific breakthroughs, the ignition of global wars, and the seismic shifts in political power that continue to define our world. In this special investigative report, we delve into the archives, examining the critical moments that unfolded on this day, probing the evidence, and presenting the facts that shaped our collective past. Prepare to uncover the stories behind history's most impactful late July developments. Coming in at number 10, we journey to July 21, 1831, a date etched into the foundation of a European nation, Belgium. Following its independence from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands in 1830, the newly formed state sought a monarch. Historical records from the Belgian state archives indicate that on this day, Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, a German prince, took an oath to the Belgian constitution and was crowned Leopold I, the first king of the Belgians. This act solidified the nation's sovereignty amidst complex European politics. The establishment of the Belgian monarchy under Leopold I marked a critical phase in the nation's identity and its place in Europe. As detailed by historian Janet L. Pulaski in The Revolutions of 1830, the choice of Leopold was a diplomatic maneuver, acceptable to the major European powers, particularly Great Britain. This move ensured Belgium's neutrality and prevented its annexation by larger neighbors. Annually, July 21st is celebrated as Belgium's National Day, commemorating not just the coronation, but the definitive birth of an independent constitutional monarchy. At number 9, we confront the grim realities of World War I. On July 31, 1917, the Third Battle of Ypres, infamous as Passchendaele, began in Flanders, Belgium. Official war histories confirm that the Allied offensive, primarily British forces, launched a massive artillery barrage against German lines. The objective, according to General Sir Douglas Haig's dispatch, was to break through German defenses, capture the ridges south and east of Ypres, and advance towards the Belgian coast. However, the initial bombardment did not achieve the desired tactical surprise. The battle quickly devolved into an attrition nightmare. Heavy rains turned the battlefield into a quagmire, submerging shell holes and making movement impossible for men and machinery alike. Eyewitness accounts from soldiers, documented in personal letters and diaries, frequently described fighting in liquid mud. Historian Robin Pryor notes in Passchendaele, the lost victory of World War I, that the conditions rendered the battlefield a churned-up swamp. The opening days alone incurred tens of thousands of casualties, setting a devastating precedent for one of the most brutal campaigns of the Great War, which would continue for over 3 months. Our eighth most impactful event brings us to July 26, 1947, and the signing of the National Security Act in the United States. Following World War II, the U.S. government recognized the need for a more coordinated national defense and intelligence structure. Primary sources from the National Archives confirm that President Harry S. Truman signed this landmark legislation into law, fundamentally reorganizing the military and intelligence agencies. It established the Department of Defense, replacing the War and Navy departments, and created the National Security Council. Crucially, the act also created the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. According to the official CIA website, its mandate was to collect, evaluate, and disseminate foreign intelligence to the President and the National Security Council. This consolidated previously fragmented intelligence efforts, reflecting a new understanding of global threats in the nascent Cold War era. Historians like John Prados argue in The Wars of the Presidents that this legislation laid the groundwork for the modern American intelligence and defense apparatus, influencing U.S. foreign policy and global interventions for decades to come. At number 7, we recall a harrowing maritime disaster from July 30, 1945. The USS Indianapolis, a heavy cruiser, was torpedoed and sunk by a Japanese submarine in the Philippine Sea. Naval records indicate the ship had just completed a top-secret mission, delivering components for the atomic bomb to Tinian Island. Historian Richard Newcomb's account, Abandoned Ship, confirms that the attack occurred shortly after midnight, with 2 torpedoes striking the vessel. The Indianapolis sank in approximately 12 minutes, carrying about 300 of its 1,196 crew members down with it. The aftermath was catastrophic. Approximately 900 men were left adrift in the open ocean, facing dehydration, exposure, and relentless shark attacks. A critical failure in communication meant their distress call was not heeded, and their absence went unnoticed for days. It was 4 days later, on August 2, that a patrol plane sighted survivors. Only 316 men were eventually rescued. The U.S. Navy's official investigation attributed the sinking to the Japanese submarine I-58. This event stands as the single greatest loss of life at sea from a single ship in the history of the U.S. Navy. Number 6 takes us to July 26, 1953, and the event widely considered the start of the Cuban Revolution. On this day, a group of approximately 150 rebels, led by Fidel Castro, launched a daring but ultimately unsuccessful attack on the Moncada barracks in Santiago de Cuba. As documented in Castro's own later account, "History will absolve me," the objective was to seize weapons and spark a popular uprising against the dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. The assault was poorly executed and quickly failed. Despite its military failure, the Moncada barracks attack proved to be a propaganda victory and a significant turning point. Many rebels were captured, tortured, and killed. Fidel Castro himself was arrested and later put on trial, where he delivered his famous 4-hour speech defending his actions. As historian Luis A. Perez Jr. highlights in Cuba, Between Reform and Revolution, this speech, later published, galvanized public opinion and articulated the core grievances of the Cuban people. The incident transformed Castro from an obscure lawyer into a prominent revolutionary figure, setting the stage for his eventual return and the triumph of the revolution 6 years later. Our fifth entry shifts to North Africa. On July 23, 1952, a group of military officers known as the Free Officers Movement orchestrated a bloodless coup against King Farouk I of Egypt. This event, often termed the Egyptian Revolution of 1952, formally began with military units taking control of key government buildings and communication centers in Cairo. Led by figures like Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser and General Mohammed Naguib, their declared aim was to end British occupation and corruption, and establish social justice, as stated in their official communiques broadcast that morning. The coup led to King Farouk's abdication and eventual exile, effectively ending the Muhammad Ali dynasty and the monarchy in Egypt. Within a year, Egypt was declared a republic. The revolution, as analyzed by political scientist P.J. Vatikiotis in The History of Egypt, had profound implications for the entire Arab world, inspiring nationalist movements and anti-colonial struggles. Gamal Abdel Nasser, who initially served under Naguib, would soon consolidate power, becoming a towering figure in pan-Arabism and non-alignment during the Cold War, shaping the political landscape of the Middle East for decades. Number 4 blasts us into the cosmos. On July 29, 1958, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act, creating the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. This monumental act, documented in the Congressional Record, was a direct response to the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957. The U.S. aimed to regain leadership in the burgeoning space race, emphasizing peaceful applications of space science and aeronautical research. NASA consolidated existing government agencies and programs, primarily the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, into a single, unified entity. Its initial mission, as outlined in its charter, was to lead the nation's efforts in space exploration and scientific discovery. Within a year, NASA began Project Mercury, the first human spaceflight program. As recounted by Roger D. Launius in NASA, A History of the U.S. Civil Space Program, NASA quickly became a symbol of American ingenuity and technological prowess, driving innovations that would fundamentally change our understanding of Earth and the universe beyond. Our bronze medal goes to a crucial turning point in Cold War history. On July 27, 1953, the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed, effectively ending the fighting in the Korean War. After more than 2 years of intense negotiations, representatives from the United Nations Command, the Korean People's Army, and the Chinese People's Volunteer Army met at Panmunjom. The document, preserved in historical archives, established a ceasefire and a demilitarized zone, creating the border that largely exists today between North and South Korea. While the armistice halted active combat, it did not constitute a peace treaty. Technically, the two Koreas remain in a state of war to this day, separated by the heavily fortified demilitarized zone. The war resulted in millions of casualties, both military and civilian, and entrenched the division of the Korean peninsula along ideological lines. Historian Bruce Cummings, in The Korean War, A History, emphasizes that the armistice froze the conflict, creating an enduring symbol of Cold War tensions and leaving unresolved questions that continue to influence global geopolitics. Our runner-up, at number 2, marks the definitive start of one of humanity's deadliest conflicts. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. This declaration, confirmed by diplomatic cables and government pronouncements of the era, was a direct response to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand a month earlier. Despite attempts at mediation, particularly from Great Britain, the intricate web of European alliances and escalating tensions made a localized conflict nearly impossible. Austria-Hungary mobilized its forces, believing swift action against Serbia was necessary. The declaration on July 28 triggered a rapid chain reaction. Russia, bound by treaty to Serbia, began mobilizing its troops. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, then declared war on Russia and soon after on France. When Germany invaded Belgium to bypass French defenses, Great Britain declared war on Germany. Within a week, the great powers of Europe were engaged in a conflict that would eventually engulf the world. Historian Christopher Clark, in The Sleepwalkers, argues that while no single nation was solely responsible, a series of miscalculations and rigid military timetables pushed Europe over the brink. This day undeniably initiated a war that reshaped the 20th century. And now, our number 1 most impactful event from July 21 to 31, the Apollo 11 moon landing. On July 21, 1969, at 2:56 Universal Time Coordinated, American astronaut Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, marking humanity's first walk on another celestial body. NASA's official mission logs confirm Armstrong's famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The Apollo 11 mission, carrying Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, achieved President John F. Kennedy's goal of landing a man on the moon before the decade's end. Millions around the globe watched live, a testament to unprecedented human ingenuity and technological achievement. The lunar module Eagle had touched down on the Sea of Tranquility just hours earlier, after a perilous descent. Aldrin soon followed Armstrong onto the surface, describing the barren yet beautiful landscape. Together, they planted the U.S. flag, collected lunar samples, and conducted experiments, while Michael Collins orbited above in the command module Columbia. The successful return of Apollo 11 proved the immense capabilities of NASA and the dedication of countless individuals. As space historian James R. Hansen asserts in First Man, this event not only fulfilled a monumental scientific and political ambition but also profoundly altered humanity's perception of its place in the universe, inspiring generations.